For those of you who are new to our series, this is the Center for Successful Aging's um, a speaker series. We try to host 2 to 3 talks per semester to introduce our community to exciting work that's going on aging, expert perspectives. It could be research, community programs, and today, well, my name is Yveris Martinez. I direct the center for those of you who don't know me. And today have with us Liz Renshaw-Breen, who's going to share with us her experience of the assisted living industry. But first, I would like our program manager, Annette Rodriguez, to give an introduction.
So at a relatively young age, Liz fell into the world of senior citizens when she became the marketing director for an assisted living community in Southern California. She continued working in the industry for the next 8 years at various levels of management. And through her work, she gleaned a behind the scenes look at the elder care industry and was privileged to learn from the many older adults she met. They taught her about dementia, family dynamics, the pleasures and heartbreaks of aging, and how to die with dignity, grace, and even joy. Liz has spent 20 years working in elder care, first in retirement communities and subsequently in home health, hospice, hospitals, and primary care. She has a degree in Latin American literature from UCLA, and she lives with her husband Marcos in Northern California. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. Well, first of all, hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. And thank you, Yveris and Annette, for inviting me to be with you today. I'm excited and I have quite a few slides to get through, and I would like to get through them so that we have plenty of time for a Q&A at the end. And we're going to talk today about assisted living, what's working now, what's harming now, and things we can improve and make it better. And I will read a few excerpts from the book that I published about assisted living and my years working in assisted living. So that, Annette, thank you, covered my background, and I worked in sales and marketing and management for all of the years that I've worked in elder care. And Sage, the book I wrote, is about my first 8 years in the field of elder care, which were spent in assisted living communities. I worked with or in assisted living communities with all these other capacities, home health and hospice, primary care. But those first 8 years were actually either in one building or in a leadership position over several buildings. So this is a quote by Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus. Many of you may know who she is. And she said, "It is one thing to recognize that older people represent the nation's greatest single human resource available, and it is quite another to do something about it." Dr. Andrus was a teacher, and she retired at age 63 in 1947. And then she went on to do her most notable life's work in retirement. She founded the National Retired Teachers Association. And in that capacity, she did a newsletter. She was in touch, talking a lot with her members and going to visit them. And one day when she was out visiting, she went to see a retired teacher who was living in the valley north of Los Angeles. And when she got to the address, she discovered that this retired teacher was actually living in a chicken coop behind the house. She was living in abject poverty. And this absolutely devastated and galvanized Dr. Andrus. So she soon raised money and she went to Ojai, California, near Santa Barbara, and she purchased 8 acres of land and she built the Gables of Ojai, which was one of the first life care communities in the country. And it was a place for retired teachers because many of them were living in poverty and they could live there for the rest of their life. And even if they had health needs, whatever happened, they were taken care of for life. She then went on, that was in 1954. She then went on to found AARP from the Gables. So the Gables of Ojai is the birthplace of AARP in 1958. It was founded by Dr. Andrus from that place. And the Gables of Ojai was the first retirement community where I worked when I entered the field of elder care, and is a very special place. So why assisted living matters so much right now? There is a huge demand for assisted living in this country. The baby boomers, almost all of them are now 65 or over. Within 4 years, they will all be 65 or older. And by the year 2050, it's estimated that there'll be around 84 million people over 65 in this country. Those of us who work in elder care, a lot of my colleagues, for years we've been talking about the silver tsunamis coming, and it's here. The silver tsunami's here. There is a huge population of older adults who need care, and they don't necessarily need medical care or a nursing home. They need that in between. And that's where this assisted living and non-medical home care are the critical bridge for that. And the goal really for this field is to align the care quality with the workforce preparation, ethical operations, to do it well, to meet this demand. There are about 1.2 million licensed assisted living beds right now in the United States. That is definitely going to grow. We were just talking before we started about a new community that popped up in Long Beach, and around 82% of those are for-profit communities. There are a lot of nonprofits as well, and in my career, I've worked in nonprofits and in for-profits, and nonprofit can be a bit of a misnomer because they are all quite focused on the bottom line, even if they're nonprofit. So this really, it shapes the incentives and the quality, and it all gets sort of operationalized and monetized. And that is an area that really, I think, needs improvement. Which brings me to this, profits versus compassion. So this is where the system breaks. The quality of the care and of the communities is sometimes limited by, there's limited government oversight because government agencies are stretched thin and lower staff, and they just can't do the oversight regularly that is needed. And then there's more care complexity. So I've been in the field for 24 years, and 15, 20 years ago, the people who are moving into assisted living now would have been moving into a nursing home. The level of care, the acuity is so much higher now. And the reason for that is, one, it's expensive. And so I think people are staying home longer and waiting and putting that move off. And another is there are a lot more home care agencies that are, even people with, with the resources are staying home. We're seeing more residents with dementia. And there's a real focus on sales and marketing, which is, what I did in the field, and on the bottom line and the profits and the revenues and filling those beds. And that does tend to dominate a lot of the daily decisions in these communities. The administrators or executive directors are the ones who are really in the middle of this, trying to meet their budgets, comply with regulations, and deal with the elders and their families and provide good care. And the irony is, a lot of these companies are cutting corners and very short-sighted on the care, and they're very short-sighted and focused on profits. And the reason for this is many of them are controlled by Wall Street. They're publicly owned companies, or they're controlled by private investors. And it's short-sighted. But the irony is, and one of the things we're going to talk about today, caring and doing a great job and doing this well actually leads to more profits. And that is something that I would love to see happen and change in this industry, for the investors to realize that. And one example of a place where I worked was called, I called it Sunset Oaks in the book. I changed the names of all the communities and the people, but I didn't change the name of the Gables because of its historical significance. But Sunset Oaks was a 50-bed memory care community in Ojai. And it wasn't super fancy in terms of aesthetically, the building, but the care was excellent. And I remember I did the sales and marketing for that one building. And we had a home health nurse visit one time, and he said, I have never been to an assisted living or memory care place like this where there is no line or difference or separation between the residents, the staff, and the families. He said, you're all one. And it is so beautiful to see. And it was really true. And because of this, because the care was so great, and you really felt it and saw it the minute you walked in, people would, even if they lived really far south in Huntington Beach, or if they lived far north, Santa Maria, they would choose Sunset Oaks for their loved one because they were willing to drive further to see their loved one because they knew they would get the best care. And we were full all the time with a waiting list. The other reason that the caring and the actually leads to better profits is the word of mouth. The feeling is the best marketing, and it's a lot cheaper than expensive advertising. There's less resident attrition. People, your building stays full. And then lastly, you have less staff turnover, which is very expensive. It's so much less expensive to keep staff than to replace them. And one of the things I learned when I got into management was that the buildings that had a really high number of workman's comp claims, which is really expensive, it was usually disgruntled employees. That was a big majority of the workman's comp claims. They weren't treating their staff well, and the staff responded passive aggressively. In one way that came out was workman comp claims. So caring for your staff, caring for your residents, caring for families actually makes sense for the bottom line. And I'll give examples of that, how that is. And it's also true for home care agencies, the private duty, non-medical. Their biggest challenge is staffing and call-offs. So the companies that really take care and treat their staff and their caregivers like family are the ones who keep their employees. They don't have the call-offs in the middle of the night. That happens a lot with non-medical agencies. And then guess who has to go in? The owner or the managers. So it really pays to treat them well. There's a place in Marin County near where I live, and I love this company. It's called First Light, and they have this big family picnic every year. They have, if a caregiver can't find a babysitter, they come to the office and the staff helps care for their children. I mean, they really are like family, and they have no turnover. Their employees feel appreciated and valued, and they stay. And this place has an excellent reputation, and they're very successful financially because of this. So this is an email from a woman named Glenda, and she gave me permission to share this. Glenda came to a book reading and signing that I did about a month ago at an independent living community. And she had not read the book yet, but I read a few excerpts and she really liked it. And she said, I want to read the book. I feel like you're talking about my experience of aging. And then she bought the book, she read it, and she sent me an email when she was done. And she said, thank you for writing that book. I found it very interesting and real. And then she went on to tell me, I deleted some of the details of her life about her and her husband. And then she ended with this. She said, this senior living could be a place to die or an adventure. Thank you for your encouragement to live with positivity, love, joy, and peace. From Glenda. And this is Glenda. She also gave me permission to use her picture, and that's John, who also came to the reading that day. And before we started, Glenda arrived early, and I sat and got to know her a little bit. And she opened up to me, and she told me she'd lived there for about 6 months, and she was lonely. And she said, I want to feel important again. I want to feel like people want to hear what I have to say. And I feel that I don't matter anymore. and I had a career and I had a life. And I hear this a lot from elders, that they feel invisible and they feel that they don't matter. So she was pretty depressed, and then she felt really inspired and happy after the event, and then reading the book gave her hope. So when we think about how can we prepare caregivers and administrators to provide the optimal care to this aging population, this growing population, in the setting of assisted living or independent living or memory care, I think Glenda really hit it on the head when she said it could be a place to die or an adventure. And thank you for your encouragement to live with positivity. So that's the goal. Make it an adventure for them, for the residents. Encourage them to live with positivity. So how do we do that? One of the biggest ways we do that is by empowering and elevating and rewarding our team members, whether it's housekeeping or dining services or activities or the caregivers. We really need to give them the resources to thrive and most of the people in this industry, it's a magnet for really wonderful, kind people. And we just need to acknowledge the work that they're doing and give them the resources. And I have a section here in the book. This is from page 289 in the book, where I talk about an example of one of the people I worked with who had this, and she had the passion and she had the resources, and her name was Zoe. So this was what I saw as our main responsibility working in elder care. Challenge the myths of aging, embrace wellness, embrace the spirit of the heart, jumpstart people's hope. We did this through art classes like the one Glenn from the Gables and I taught at a local senior center. We called it Cutting Edge Crafts, and our class was full every week, and Glenn would always start by saying, remember people, when it comes to glitter, less is more. Zoe, the activity director at Elders View, another place I worked, was truly cutting edge. She did not believe in activity programs based on the 3 Bs, bingo, Bibles, and birthdays, which was the go-to plan for many of her counterparts at competitor places. Instead, Zoe did things such as an art class in which residents would study Jackson Pollock, look at his artwork, take a field trip to the museum, read his biography, watch a documentary film about him, and then paint a painting in the same style as Pollock's. Zoe believed in activity programs which treated elders like adults, not children. So that's an example of a life enrichment director who was empowered and passionate and given the resources to do creative things. So that's one way. Another way is for administrators to be hands-on. To no fault of the executive directors, many of them, their day gets hijacked by Zoom meetings and emails and phone calls, and they don't interact with the residents. And the residents are their customer, and they tend to only see them passing in the hall or at the monthly town hall meeting, and then it turns into a big, endless session of complaints. So one way, it's very simple, but one way I saw that was quite effective were administrators who would just go at breakfast or lunch and pick up the coffee pot and walk around the dining room and pour coffee and say hi. And it showed the residents that they cared, they wanted to interact, they wanted to hear from them, because they know that these places are often focused on the bottom line. The residents do more and care more about that than about them. So this was one way that really showed, I want to talk to you. I want to see you. I care about you. I'm the leader here, and I'm pouring your coffee, and I'm of service to you, and I want to talk to you. And if you're full of positivity and inspiration, everybody around you will too. The leader really sets the culture. This is a quote from Dr. Andrus's mother, actually, when she started the National Retired Teachers Association. She said to Dr. Andrus, Ethel, old age needs care as youth needs care, but it needs something more. It needs the desire to live, to continue planning and striving, hopefully to keep working at something worthwhile. So that's one of our goals. That is our big goal in assisted living, is to give people this desire to live and a way to keep striving in their older age. So how do we do that and not get burnt out? That's a big challenge. So this field is very rewarding, it's fulfilling, but it's also emotionally and physically draining. So caregiver burnout happens to not just family caregivers, but also professional caregivers. And we need to support leadership well-being in our staff. So everybody in all the jobs I've had, people roll their eyes when you say we're going to do a team building event. And the truth is, sometimes those can be not very fun, or you can be stuck in a conference room all day doing role playing. But I've been to many over the years, and I've hosted many as a leader. And when we get buy-in and consensus from our team and ask them, what do you want to do? Do you want to do zip lining, scavenger hunt? Take a vote, make it democratic, and get together on a regular basis. Have this be systematic so that they get out of the building and they connect with each other and they recharge their battery and get in touch with their purpose and why they're doing this. And they get that shot in the arm that everybody needs, and they have fun together and bond. So there's all sorts of ways that we can do this. And I really encourage people to ask their staff and vote on what they want to do. Another thing, a way to avoid burnout for our staff is to ask them what motivates you. One of the first things I did as a leader when I had a new team, I would go meet individually with each one and I would ask them about their background, their interests, their hobbies, and then I would say, how are you motivated? Is it intrinsic or extrinsic? Or do you like recognition, money? What's the most important thing to you? And then really tailor leadership of that with that person to that. And then you need to train people. You need to give them the tools and train them like you expect them to stay. And that starts with onboarding. A lot of jobs, people are thrown in the deep end. And if you really give them good training in the beginning, they're a lot more successful. And then you, as the leader, need to practice radical self-care. So everybody has their own way that they recharge their battery, whether it's meditation or exercise or church or a combination of all these things. It's really important to not wait until we're burnt out to do these things. It's too late then when we're already burnt out. So I really encourage people in leadership and in this field at any level to have a system in place and to be doing this radical self-care on a regular basis before they get burnt out. These are some of the things I did when I was in assisted living communities, and also when I worked in the hospital. I was the chief marketing officer for a hospital. I had a team of 15 people all over the Bay Area. But one of the things I came up with in assisted living and then I ended up using in the hospital as well with my team was this wheel spin. And it's based on B.F. Skinner's intermittent reinforcement, which is one of the most powerful ways to motivate people. And what I did was I would have some sort of goal. If you have 3 move-ins in a week, for instance, at the assisted living, you get to spin the wheel, and I had different prizes. So it was a really simple but highly effective way to motivate people, and it created fun. And I had things like Starbucks card or some big things like theater tickets. But what I found as I did this, both in assisted living and at the hospital, was people just loved it. It took about 15 minutes. They got to come up in front of they got the recognition. I won a prize. They got the fun and excitement of what is it going to land on, and they got acknowledgement. And it did. As we went on, I noticed that people who were winning, say maybe they won 3 wheel spins in a week, they would say, "I want to give Gina one of my wheel spins." So it created a real sense of team and fun, and people loved it. So, I mean, I run into employees now 10 years later and they bring up the wheel spin. So it's just a little one I thought I'd share with you because it works really well. So the upside, what can assisted living do well? So when the model is resourced and the values are aligned, it can really be this sweet spot. And it can give the safe environment that seniors need. It can give that social connection. Loneliness is an epidemic in our country at all ages, and really with older adults. And it's very detrimental to their health. I've read all these studies, many of you probably have, about loneliness being equivalent to smoking in terms of shortening people's longevity. And it gives the family members relief where they can actually enjoy their loved ones now. They're not doing the activities of daily living. They can have more fun and connection. And then it's a place where dignity can be protected, and it has to be in assisted living and in especially in memory care. And the administrators really set the culture. So one of the things is what we need to see, one of the changes is we need to see a lot more of the resources, the financial resources that these buildings have. It's a lot of it is being funneled to the top, and it's not going back into the community. So that is one of the problems. And so people need to, at these communities, push back with corporate and invest more in their staff. So one of the things that's working right now really well in all of the communities, I think, is people are surrounded by their peers, so they're not lonely anymore. There's lots of activities. The pets are one of the biggest coping mechanisms and tools that people use as they get older. Pets are so important, and I'm happy to see that at least in California, almost every place allows pets. Um, and then falling in love. I saw a lot of people fall in love and will make new friends or find a new partner in assisted living because they had been living isolated and now they're in a community where they can meet people. So I wrote in the book about that, and I have a chapter at the end. It's the life chapter where I have these some inspiring stories. And this one was about a woman named Valerie. And I wrote, one of the most delightful ways I got to see people stay engaged in life was when they fell in love. It happened more often than one would think. I saw people fall in love at 80, 90, 95. Valerie Branson was one such lady. She arrived for her first tour of the Gables wearing 3-inch heels. Her white hair swept into a sophisticated updo. Valerie was 93 and exceptionally beautiful. Valerie, I said, this place is on 8 acres. Are you sure you're going to be okay in those heels? Valerie's skin, jewelry, and clothes were gorgeous. She was just as pretty on the inside, too. A truly sweet person. A month after she moved in, at the weekly happy hour gathering, Valerie met Floyd Broder, who was 95. She came into my office a few months later and explained, Liz, I thought I was going to come here and play bingo, watch movies, take up arts and crafts. Instead, I met a man. I'm in love. That's wonderful, Valerie. I saw you and Floyd in the lounge before dinner last night, and you both looked very happy. Valerie and Floyd were inseparable. They went on field trips together, ate every meal together, and walked around the property holding hands, with Valerie still in her high heels. One day I went to Valerie's apartment to give her a package that had been delivered to the office. As I walked onto the porch, the curtain to the front window was open, and there they were on Valerie's sofa, making out like teenagers. I didn't want to interrupt the steamy scene, so I turned around and I headed back to my office smiling. So I saw that happen a lot. People either make new friends or fall in love. So that's working well, and that just happens naturally at these communities. Another thing in memory care that's working really well is people get more life enrichment. It's so hard to take care of someone at home with memory loss. It's a full-time job. So life enrichment goes by the wayside. It has to. I mean, they're so focused on the meals and the medications and everything. So when people move into a good memory care community, their family is still very much a part of their life, but they're getting more life enrichment. They're getting the field trips and great activities. And I write a lot. I have a whole chapter on the caregivers. That's another thing that's working well, is the caregivers are really angels, and it's a calling for them. And so that's wonderful. And seeing families support each other. And I wrote in here too in the book about the best friends approach to Alzheimer care. And that was a thing written in a philosophy by David Troxel and Virginia Bell many years ago. And the best friends approach to Alzheimer's says, if you know one person with Alzheimer's care or with Alzheimer's, you know one person with Alzheimer's. And their whole training program was to know 100 things about the life history and about this person that had memory loss. And that was the way to provide the best care, was to really know them as an individual. And when we do that, then we can see the behavior as communication. So if they're in pain or fear or confusion or have unmet needs. And I wrote an example of a lady who moved into memory care where I worked. Camille was agitated for the first couple of weeks after moving in, and we could not figure it out why. She yelled a lot and even punched the caregivers. We asked John, the maintenance director, to try and calm her, thinking she might respond to a male figure. She attacked him with a broom. Eventually, Camille's daughter came by, saw her hair in a ponytail, and told us that she hated having her hair pulled back. When Camille was a child, her mom often pulled her hair back so tightly it would hurt her. Camille could only mumble unrecognizable words, thus, she could not tell us about the ponytail. When we took her hair down and let it flow, a gorgeous thick silver head of locks that went below her waist, she calmed, and she never attacked anyone again. So that's an example of the best friends approach really working when we would know that history about her. And then I put here on the last part about ways we can make it better. One way I'll highlight here is less medication. That was something that I saw when people didn't take the time to train their staff, get to know the residents, then places tend to over-medicate, especially people in memory care, and that needs to change. Another is the last bullet here, push back at corporate. That's something I really want to emphasize to people who are going to be an administrator or an executive director, is that when you have a full building, you have a lot of power. You don't work for corporate, they work for you. And that's something to really hold on to and know that they don't want to lose you. I've worked at corporate and I've worked at the community level, and I guarantee corporate's having conversations about those successful buildings and those successful executive directors. And I don't think that those administrators know the power that they have, where they can actually push back and say, no, we're going to keep more of these resources. We're going to pay our staff more. We're going to have better staffing ratios. So to that point, we're going to invest more in activities and in fun outings for our staff. We're not going to funnel everything back to the top at corporate. So this is a way that we can improve the industry, is investing in our workforce, having realistic workloads for our staff. They get burnt out because they have just too much on their plate. So we need better staffing ratios. Root cause learning, not blaming when things go wrong. Caregivers are overworked. They want to do a good job. So really finding the root cause. Family partnerships. Some of the places I worked had great family potlucks where it became this sort of impromptu support group. And then lastly, I have a number 4 here. Having things systematically and routine, things such as recognition and retention plans, family updates. Families are not going to get upset if you're in regular communication with them. It's when you only come to tell them that their rent's going up and you've never talked to them the rest of the year. Of course, they're going to be upset. And then the last bullet, continuous improvement and sharing the best practices. So this is the last part I'll share from the book. When we were doing the website for one of the communities I worked for, and I was at the corporate office, and I said, let's ask the caregivers for content. They're the ones on the front line. So I think we can really learn from them the best practices. And when we go and we ask them for that, we're acknowledging their wisdom. They are the experts. They are the ones on the front line caring every day. So I encourage people to ask them for their advice. I'll just read the first one. Create a focus that calms. This was contributed by a caregiver named Gracie. When helping a resident with toileting, they may become agitated. I usually hold the resident's hands and engage them in conversation about family or sing one of their favorite songs. The key is to have the resident focusing on something that calms and relaxes them. I also tell them something personal about myself so they don't feel so vulnerable and exposed during this time. So I really encourage people to use their staff as a resource, empower and elevate them. And that's one way, is to acknowledge and reward them for their wisdom and learn from them. So the takeaways is this: assisted living can be life-giving or harmful. We need to treat our staff and residents as our customers, because they are. And when we do it right, then everything flows and it becomes this circle. You have happy staff, which leads to happy residents and families, which means you're full, your building's full, you have tons of resources, you have revenue, you have less turnover. Now you have leverage with corporate to say, we're going to invest more of this back in our community, or else I'm going to quit because everybody's trying to recruit me because everybody around here knows that this is a successful building. And then we have this money to do the creative, fun things, to take care of our residents and staff. And then it's this continuous flowing circle that works beautifully when it's done right. So thank you. And now open up for comments or questions.
Thank you very much, Liz, for sharing your expertise with us.